Well, one shortcut to having automation interact with guests and sort of like the phone automation that you were speaking of is having devices like Amazon's Alexa in the guest room. But that has to collect more data. We're not at machine learning yet, so it has to collect more data that hotels have to crunch, and everything from the door locks collects data, everything now. So how are we doing digesting the data that we already have?
Horrible.
Yeah. Is there
The promise of big data is a myth.
Yeah.
If you want to see big data that's actually working, Google Maps and the technology they use to route your route and to collect all the data from all the endpoints and from all the different sources is the only place, not the only, I know there's other places, where you've really seen it. What you need to focus is on is actionable data. So, and then figuring out what it is. I talked to revenue management solutions on the floor, and they're great because that's big data, right? That's, patterns and booking windows and rates, elasticity and the needs of the hotel versus the needs of the marketing compression, all the stuff that they have to do to make a rate decision to put, it's amazing. But now they're adding in weather and airport delays and feeder city. Well, Denver from Chicago is a big route, and Chicago Midway is closed, and Denver's not going to have hotel rooms or whatever, right? A lot of it is smoke and mirrors, and I think that what we really need to focus on, because we have so much data, is figuring out what is actionable intel, and then we also have to balance that with what do we know too much about the guest. I mean, if you take it to another level, we know what side of the bed you sleep on. If you're sleeping alone, we know what pillows you use. We know whether you sleep with the covers on or on top of the covers, what television channels you watch. I mean, you can get it down to a really granular level, which might sound like great customer service, but it might sound like you're stalking your guest. And we need to find the key balance to what we collect, what we store, how we protect it, and what we reveal to our guests as a result of that before we can even talk about how we're going to use the data.
That's funny. I've met so many people in this field who describe the level of data collection, the creepiness factor, things like that. Todd, how do guests respond to things like that? Do they respond? I mean, how do you feel?
No, there's a great concern amongst many, and there's a group of people out there that are just willing to give up everything regardless, right? So to Jeff's point, I think the key on the data front is revenue management initially, because there's a lot of external data that we can gather, that we do gather, to create recommendations, in-market recommendations, which is very different than the way things used to be, right? So that's one area. We're actually developing a new platform that provides, we have a massive data lake in AWS actually, where we're going to mine that information. It's all, of course, from our internal systems, but augmenting that through partners with other information, right? To be able to turn around and use it, hopefully in a non-creepy way, that helps enhance the consumer's booking process, making it faster, right? Here's where we do simple things today. Here's where you stayed the last time. Do you want to stay there again? Let's make it quick, right? So that's an initial step. So they're comfortable with that component. Now, if I can add other things to that along the way to enhance their experience or upsell them or do something like that, those are the types of things that we're looking at.
Well, how about Alexa? People think that it's listening all the time, and it's only I'm not sure how often it's listening. So do guests have fears? Yeah, I'm sure it's listening all the time. But
speaking purely as a consumer, sure, I'll turn that off. If I'm in a car where there's a camera that may be watching me like OnStar, I'll request another car. It's not your business. You're not paying me for my information. So to the extent that I can control it, if I get in a room with an Alexa, it's getting unplugged and I'm putting it in the cupboard. I'm not interested in that. And that's particularly a personal matter. I suspect I might be on the edge of things. I'm not entirely sure. There's an option for service to that regard. For customers who are into that, I'm sure we'll be able to sell them a product that addresses that need. But I don't know, if I'm traveling, whether for business or pleasure, I'm there to do my thing. I don't feel comfortable sharing that data.
What phone do you have?
I got an iPhone and I jailbroke it and I turned it off.
Every minute of
Oh,
every
I
day.
know it is.
Siri's waiting for its prompt word. So is Android and OK Google.
I turned that off.
Well, and I think you're the minority.
I know.
Agree with you the concerns. We worked, again, when I was interstate, and we're certainly looking at those technologies now. Having a device that listens in the room is scary. Having a device that's common in a household isn't designed for the commercial or the hospitality space is scary. having no clear path to shut it off and let you know that it's off without unplugging it, and then therefore, if the housekeeper doesn't catch that it's unplugged or that it's in the cupboard, not plugging it in for the next guest who wants to use it. Now that guest experience for the next guest. And we see this with alarm clocks because we don't have enough plugs in the room, right? How many times have you walked into a hotel room, particularly in New York, because we didn't have enough power in New York, where somebody's unplugged the alarm clock to plug in their cell phone, and now you don't know what time it is. So I am scared about putting the technology in, not just for having the listening. I think there's been some legal precedent set about what Amazon really is collecting and not collecting. I think we've seen that. Google's going to be the same way. It doesn't matter. I'm not picking on Amazon per se. I think that voice is the way to go. Google can speak 27 languages now. So if you're in a market like today where every single one of my Uber drivers has spoken a different native tongue, that means travelers coming here are going to be the same way. That's a customer service delivery vector we can do. But at this point, we have to have a way to shut it off that the guest knows it's shut off, doesn't interrupt the next guest's thing. And I really think the problem with Amazon and Google and a lot of the stuff that we're forcing into hotels now to be cool, to be cutting edge, is they're getting hamstrung so bad it's actually a worse experience. Amazon does not allow you to do music streaming. You can't connect your account to the device. So you can Bluetooth it, but then it's a really expensive Bluetooth speaker. So all it can do is do the basic stuff that the app, whatever program you're working with, whether it be Whistle app or whatever it is, that just does the hotel stuff. And to me, revealing that value is we've got to figure out a way where you can walk into the room, pair your account with it. So now my Amazon is my Amazon. I can listen to my mix, I can listen to my jokes, I can play Jeopardy and it knows where I'm at. Or whatever it is you do with yours. Turn off the lights in your house, that would be really fun. Your kids are home, hey Alexa, turn off the lights in the living room. And it does it from your hotel room, that'd be awesome, right? I think we've got to figure out how to do that, get around the DCMA, which is going to be a problem, I got it. And get those things so that now we can personalize that device. Again, Google's a great example, because Google's tracking everything. Stuff we don't know about, talk about creepy. If we can now pair my Google account to that, simply, it's got to be something the guest can do simply. It's got to be something my wife can do, or otherwise it's not going to get used. To your point earlier, we're putting technology in what our guests can use. You pair that account, now that becomes a powerful device. But I think where they are today, we're way far off, and I really do think we need to wait for a commercial grade product to put in, and forcing a Google device or an Apple device in is not the right way to go right now.
Jeff and I, when we were looking at solutions, we were asking, if the guest falls and says, I've fallen and I can't get up, what's our legal responsibility? But as IT folks, we have to make sure that we vet the vendors that we use, and you guys have been through my horrible vetting process, but we have to ask the right questions. What's the service level agreements that you're going to contractually agree to? But also, how are you achieving those service levels? And so as IT folks, we have to dive 5 layers deep on everything that we ask, so we can find the break point and back up. That way we understand our risk exposure. So when we talk about putting an item in there, we need to ask questions like, can it be turned off? Can it be turned off easily? What data is it actually gathering? Is it always listening, or is it listening for a specific word to get going? Until then, it's turned off. So, and where is that? How's that data stored, if it is, and those types of. So these are all questions I think as IT folks we have to vet before we stick it in the room. We have to vet the vendor, we have to vet the product, and we have to ask 5-layer deep top questions so we can understand where the no happens, and then we know where our risk is at, and then we can move out from there.